This is going to be a start of a series of videos that I plan on doing on solo mining pool setups. And so today we're basically just going to be taking a look at the hardware we're going to be running in this series, kind of what the plans are, and those plans may shift based on as new crypto coins pop up, things like that. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm trying to help everyone, mainly the at-home miners, get up and running with their own solo mining pools. So none of these will be public over the internet. They'll all be within your home network. And what we're going to be doing is we actually bought a very cheap PC on eBay. It's actually an Elite Desk 705, which is the AMD lineup of the Elite Desks. And you can see here, I did buy this. You can buy these with a buy it now of $20. Super cheap. They have a A8, so this is pre-Ryzen lineup. These basically are running the old FM sockets. And so these are getting you 4-core, 4-thread, or you can upgrade that to a 4-core, 8-thread. And anywhere up to 32 gigs of RAM. What I like about these are small form factor cases. They do have they've got a small form factor slimline DVD burner in them. But more importantly, they have room for 3.5 inch hard drives and also a SSD or 2.5 inch laptop SATA drive. So let me see if they actually have pictures of the inside here. It might be a little bit hard to see. But this cage, underneath the CD drive, you can fit a 3.5 inch hard drive, and then you can also fit a 3.5 here, as well underneath, as well as a SSD here, and then a 3.5 on the top. So you could even swap out the CD drive if you wanted and put another SSD in there. And then there's also 4 PCIe slots in this thing. So you could run, if you wanted to, you could run 2 single slot graphics cards and 2, let's say, X1 NVMe adapters if you wanted to put some additional storage in here. We're not going to need that much storage. I did load this up with a few hard drives that I had. So we are running a 256 gig SSD, and that's going to serve as the operating system drive. And we've put in 3 additional hard drives that we're going to be using to basically have an LVM, which is a logical drive that we can do whatever we want. Chances are what we're going to start off with is just providing on storage with it and kind of letting it sit in the background. And if we need to use it for storage for any wallet daemons, blockchains, anything like that, we will have that available to us. Obviously, we could have went with a mini PC, but I opted for this system. I really actually like this, especially for the price. Super hard to beat, and it will give us, should give us plenty of compute power that we need. We're just going to be running mining pools on this, so it shouldn't be anything crazy. And in the event we want to do a little bit of GPU mining on the system itself, we could always throw in like RX 6400 single slot cards, or even the new A400 or the A1000. Those will slot in here as well. And gives us some additional functionality if we choose to use that moving forward. Now that we talked about the hardware, let's talk about the software, the OS, how we're going to be setting things up for this series. So we are going to be running, and I've already done this base install of Ubuntu 24.01. This is the latest long-term release for Ubuntu, so this is what we're going to be running. Now, the plan for this series is to do everything in Docker. So that's going to allow you to use Windows if you want to use Windows, or Mac, or Linux. Basically, any operating system will work. Most of these containers will actually also even work on things like the Synology NAS or any of those types of devices. So really, you can run a pool on pretty much any device on your network, even within a Hive OS rig, anything like that. So this is going to give you all of that flexibility right out of the box. It really isn't going to matter what operating system you're running. So for me, for this series, we're going to be running Ubuntu 24.01. 8.04. And like I said, we already did the base install. The other thing that, let me just touch base real quick, is kind of the packages that we're going to be running. So the first pull that we're going to be setting up, and which will probably be in the next video, will be nomp. And I have, if you hop over to my GitHub, you can see I've already started forking a bunch of the wallets to create my own Docker containers. So right off the bat, what we're going to be doing is some of the coins that we'll be covering in this series will be Innova, Bugna, Cedra, Gritzel coin, Cedra is on there, Vertcoin will be on there. There'll be a bunch of coins on there that we'll be leveraging and creating solo mining pools for, and this list will just grow over time. And so I did fork the repositories, created custom Docker image. They are all going to be hosted on my Docker Hub account. So there will be no issue with the images maybe getting removed or anything like that. So they will all be on mine, and they are all hosted on my GitHub. They can always be compiled offline if needed as well. And the first pool we're going to be running is going to be nomp. This is an example instance of nomp that I'm already running. It's a pretty straightforward pool. It doesn't have too many features as far as configurable payouts, anything like that from an end user perspective. But since we're running everything on our local network, that doesn't really matter. You will be able to configure the payouts kind of globally for the system. But since you'll be the only one solo mining into it, shouldn't be an issue at all. If we head on over, they do have graph statistics. So this specific pool, I'm running Innova and Gritzel coin on. And you can kind of see here the average pending blocks per pool. So these are basically average blocks that are awaiting confirmation before they get credited to the wallet. This is our average hash rate and workers. So what we have right now is, if we hop on over to the table stats, you can see that we have, we're basically mining both Innova and Gritzel coin on here. And we actually recently hit some blocks on both coins. Innova, I have a substantial amount of hash rate on the network, and so I'm hitting a lot of those blocks. You can see we've hit 768 blocks, 632 are confirmed. We currently got 3 pending blocks. Same thing with Gritzel. We're hitting about a block a day or so. So this is working out pretty good. We recently hit a block, so we can see that here. Head on over to the worker stats. We can see the miners that are connected, the wallet addresses, and kind of the hash rate that is going on there. So this is basically just going to give you kind of that quick overview, and obviously you can also see the connection strings that you'll be able to configure. This is what we'll be setting up kind of in the next video. But for this video, we're going to set up any kind of dependencies on the system in order to run all of these pools and containers. So I'm going to hop back on over to the server. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to do sudo apt update. Now, I did do a fresh install today, so this shouldn't really have any updates or packages to upgrade, so it should go pretty quick. Okay. And then we'll go ahead and run an upgrade. Go ahead and upgrade those packages. Once the update's finished, all we need to really install is the Docker runtime service. And the beauty of Docker is that everything's kind of self-contained in that, so we don't have to worry about installing dependencies or anything on the underlying operating system. That all happens within the containers itself. So all we need to do is a sudo apt install docker.io. This is going to go ahead and download. This may take a couple minutes. This is going to download and install Docker and get the service up and running, get everything that we needed there. So while that is downloading and installing, the one thing I wanted to touch base on with Docker is how we're going to be running our containers. Typically, when you're running services, you can either run them using port mapping, and use more of like a contained network, which is out of the box how things work. Or you can tell it to use the host network, which would be the network connection of this system. And there are performance implications to that. This is a Stack Overflow post that was done a while back, and it kind of talks about the performance differences between running natively on the system and running within a Docker NAT. And this specific chart that we're looking at here, this is going to be the network latency. And the big thing that we're looking here is if you do the out-of-the-box Docker NAT, you're looking at this middle chart for latency, where if you run native, you're looking at this far left column on this chart. So you can see in this example, it was around 38 milliseconds if you ran natively, but if you ran the Docker NAT, you were almost double that. You're around 72 milliseconds. So if we run our Docker containers using the host network, then we achieve this performance level within Docker, which is what we need. So when we are solo mining and we are communicating from the miners to the Docker container to the blockchain, and sometimes we may even be communicating between Docker containers, we need the fastest and the least latency possible. So to achieve that, we're going to be using, on all of our Docker containers, we're going to set the net to be the host. This is going to optimize the connection, and it's going to reduce the round trips that happen with the Docker NAT. Normally, from a security perspective, you would do the Docker NAT so that you could control what ports get opened. When we're doing this, the Docker container, any ports opened within the Docker container from those services will automatically be opened on the host. So just keep that in mind. Basically, what we're doing here is we're sacrificing a little bit of security configurability in order to optimize the network latency that we would be getting had we run the NAT. So back on the VM, Docker is installed. Next thing we want to do is we're going to create a user account. Now, this part is somewhat optional, but what I like to do is I like to just do a sudo add user. We're going to call it pool, and we'll give it a password, confirm the password, and then we'll just go through all the prompts, hit yes. And then we're also going to add that to the sudo group. So we're just going to do sudo add user space pool space sudo. This will add it to sudo group. And the reason we're going to be doing this, I'm going to go ahead and switch to the account now. To do that, we're going to do su space hyphen space pool. Enter the password. All right, so we're now switched into the pool account. Everything that we're going to run, we're actually going to run under this pool account. And the biggest reason we're creating this is we're going to have to do volume mappings, meaning we're going to take, for some of the containers, especially with like the mining pool stuff, we're going to be mapping folders so that the data gets persisted across container restarts, container deletes, recreations, things like that. So especially when we're talking about like the blockchain data, in the event we need to deploy a new version of the container, we don't want to have to resync the whole blockchain. And so we're going to basically leverage volume mappings in order to store everything. So to do that, we're going to store everything under the pool user account. So right now, obviously there isn't anything there. In the next videos, as we go through the setup of the various Docker containers, we're going to be creating folders here. Like we'll probably create one for the pool that contains the pool configuration file, things like that. So we don't have to actually like shell into the container to update configs. We'll be able to update them all from within this system through just a standard text editor. That's it for the initial setup. So in the next video, we will be setting up probably NOMP, which is the mining pool software I just showed you, and we'll be setting it up on probably either Innova or Gridsoul Coin as a good baseline start, and then we will be basically moving on from there, covering a bunch of other coins in that, and then also covering how you can run Caspa mining, Cedra mining, Bugna mining, and Dockers. Those will all be in future videos as well. If there's any specific coins you would like me to cover in future videos, leave them in the comments below of this video.